Alrighty folks, what is up everybody? Welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is VooDooVal and I am so excited to be here. We had some technical issues yesterday, some bugs kind of streaming into you guys, so the show was canceled yesterday, but we were able to resolve the issues and I'm here today. Very excited, but good to see you folks. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. Nachi, Rob, Umacorn, Barbara. It is so great to see everyone. Hello Bliss, hello Steve, Sam Peterson, good to see ya. All right, so without further ado, let's get into graphic glow up. The first thing I want to do is rename our episode because I realize we've got the wrong title up here. So let me come up here real quick. Today's episode is called Painting Light and Shadow, and I'm really excited about it because I realized that I do a lot of illustration, I do a lot of graphic design and things for you folks on the show, but it's been a really long time since I actually dug into doing like some legitimate painting illustration. You know, I've been doing like graphic illustration and some like more simple illustration with large shapes and thick chunky brushes, but today I actually want to like paint for you guys. So I'm really excited. Yeah, no bugs tonight, no bugs tonight. And what we're gonna do is focus on painting light and shadow, doing some really interesting things with textures and blur to create kind of a depth of field in our pieces. And we're also gonna talk about how those illustration and painting techniques actually correlate and correspond to other kinds of design. So things like graphic design, UI, UX design, compositing, photo editing, all of those things. So yes, it is an illustration episode, a painting episode, but it is a little more all-encompassing than that. So I'm gonna dive into a little bit about the show and the awards ceremony. So Graphic Glow Up serves as kind of a great place to come and number one, learn about all of Adobe's free resource sites, but also to kind of learn how to give ourselves a pat on the back. There is a link down below where you folks can download my goals and achievements files, which I will be using towards the end of the show today. And they look a little something like this. So I'm going to pop over. So these are the things that we're going to be using for today's show. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some goals that I have for my project today. And then once I set some goals for myself, personal, professional, and or future, I'm also going to give myself some achievements at the end of the show. So I've been keeping this tally of achievements that I earn by doing these shows, just to give myself a visual representation of all of my progress, of all of the work that I do. And I've got a tip at the bottom of this page that's very important. You deserve to earn points when you try things for the first time and or when you create something you are proud of. Get into the habit of appreciating the little things, moments in which you grow, not just complete. So if you feel like you don't have enough stuff to put in your portfolio, you feel like you always try new techniques and you never quite hit the mark, please keep in mind that if you're sitting down and you are doing work, you are making progress. Not every single session of creativity has to end in having a perfect portfolio piece. So sit down with me. We're going to dive into some cool design stuff. We're going to get into some nifty things, all right? And yeah, I'm going to pop over to my blank canvas today and I'm going to sketch. And I'm going to sketch quick. Okay, I'm going to sketch pretty fast because I want to do a lot of things with this. But the first thing we're going to need in order to do these examples of painting light and shadow is we're going to need a subject. So I am going to show you guys my painting process real quick, and I'm just gonna do a portrait. I'm gonna do one of the most relatively easy things for me to paint personally, which is just a straightforward portrait of a person. And this is how I begin. So I am pretty messy, honestly. All of my sketching, I start out with just like gigantic shapes like this, and I just scribble all over my canvas. Sometimes before I get going, before I start sketching, I do a bunch of this kind of stuff and just like get my hand used to painting. And I'm just gonna do like kind of my standard head egg shape here, and I'm gonna make this just a tiny bit smaller and bump this up here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in like a neck sort of, and I'm gonna give this person like a high collar. We're just gonna do something simple like this, okay? And we're gonna eventually paint this person in and all that stuff, but we gotta make it look more like a people, like a people person. So I'm gonna go with that. And I'm gonna show you how I work out like sketching in a face. And for those of you who are illustrators and painters, this is something that can really help you. But for those of you who are maybe graphic designers and you find yourself having to design like graphic images of or icons of faces, this is a pretty good rule of thumb for how to place everything in. So you notice I put my circle and then I put my little egg shape at the bottom here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these as kind of guidelines for where I put facial features. So right here underneath this little circle point is I'm going to do like a little upside down triangle, and that's going to be the bottom of my nose. Okay. Also, I want to make sure that I flip through chat here and I'm not missing anything. Good to see all of you folks. Kerwin, Gareth, welcome in. Annika, hello. Nick, welcome in. It's good to see you. Who else we got here? RB, Wenda, it's good to see you, my friend. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. Okay, so this is going to be where my nose is. I'm going to put 2 dots here, and that's going to be the corners of my mouth, all right? And then I'm going to put another little upside down triangle here, and that's going to be the dip or the Cupid's bow sort of part of the bottom of the upper lip. Now, not everybody has this feature, but it's a good rule of thumb just to imagine where it would be if my character did have it. And then I'm just going to elongate this just to kind of give like a bridge of the nose. And then I like to do what is called the diamond face shape. This is something I've just been kind of saying in my mind for a lot of years, is I do literally like a diamond shape. So there's my brow. There's the sides of our diamond, okay? And there's the bottom of the diamond. So that kind of looks like a diamond icon, right? But what it really is, if I put a line here and a line here, is the folds under the eye. If I join these to where the bridge of our nose begins, then I start to create this shape, this little pocket for our eyes to sit in. And then I can start to put in my actual eyelid shapes. And they're not even, and a majority of the time that I spend painting, nothing is even. Nothing, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, not a lot in my art is even and perfect. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, baby. And the reason why I do this diamond shape is because our brow kind of skews off, and everybody has a different face shape, but that's kind of a common thing that you'll see. And I can put a line in here just to kind of show the bottom of that eyelid if I want. And then if I come in here with some little dips, then I can start to like build those cheekbones, round out that chin. I like to put a little bit of a dip for the underneath of the bottom lip here, just so I know where that's at. And then I'll bring my face down. All right, you see a little face coming in? I will come in and put these little lines here just so that I have the, that high point of the temple, and all that good stuff. And that'll work for me for now. That works. I might actually bump this over just slightly. Or you know what I'll actually do is I will merge this down, and I'm going to select and just bring that over just slightly. All right, so now I have this, and we're gonna make this look like a person with hair wearing clothes. Okay. I always do upside down triangles for sketching noses too. You kind of, yeah, cause it depends on your lighting situation and everything, but like just putting that little wedge, like kind of tells you, okay, here's the tip of the nose, there's the where the nostrils sit, and depending on the kind of person that you are painting or illustrating, you might make that wider or narrower or pointier or softer and rounder or whatever it is, but typically it's a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay, so I've got this in. I want to make my brush bigger. I'm just making my brush larger with the left and right bracket keys. And I am going to add in a hairdo. It's a simple hairdo. Just, something I can paint quickly. Just kind of get that in there. So there's a little hairdo. And then what I'm gonna do is come in and kind of shadow and shade some things, because I think that our face is looking a little bit, I won't say plain, I just feel like we could, you know, give it a little more love. So I've turned the opacity lower on that sketch layer, and on a new layer with just Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N if you're using a Mac, I'm going to make a new layer, make my brush smaller, and I'm going to come in and add, now that I've got this laid out, I'm going to add the definitive points where things must go. So the first thing, for whatever reason, that I typically start with is I start with the shadow for my nostrils. And I do this because no matter how I've sketched the face, I always know where to put those nostrils. Those nostrils, no matter how loose my sketch is, the nostrils with my way of painting always seem to always be in the right spot. So I might need to, you know, free transform and move it up or down, but it's always the easiest part for me to do. So that's where I'll start. And we're also going to, now that I'm kind of into painting, we are going to start thinking about lighting. Now we're going to do kind of a simple top-down lighting, and I'm going to talk about how lighting in illustration and lighting in painting can be kind of the same thing, or lighting in illustration and lighting in like graphic design, UI, UX design. So for you UI, UX designers out there who are designing modules and creating buttons and navigation panels and all kinds of things, when you're using drop shadows or fill color shadows or layers or outlines and everything, when you go through your design, you kind of need to make sure that if you're going to do anything fancy with a drop shadow or a design feature of the sort, you kind of have to make sure everything's going in the same direction. You have to make sure everything is cohesive. It's the same with illustration. When I start to light a piece, I need to imagine where the light is coming from. So I'm imagining here that this light is coming from the top down, which is an easy one to explain. But if you're doing UI, UX design and you've got, you know, these modules, these buttons, like so, that say something on it, and you want to put like a thick fill shadow in here, and you want this coming from this side, you got to make sure that every other button that you do on your entire website also has this kind of vibe, because if you have them all over the place in different directions and different settings, then your piece, your app design is not really going to look very cohesive. It's going to start looking a little bit odd. So even for you UI UX designers and graphic designers, keeping a mental visualization of the direction of the lighting in your project is very important. It will help you keep things cohesive, attractive, and dynamic. So I am keeping this in mind, and I'm going to add this dark kind of triangle shadow underneath my nose. Because if there's light on top here, then there's light on the bottom here underneath. And that brings that nose into 3D space. It allows my viewer to imagine it as a substantial object in a 3D space rather than a flat image. Border boxes for that, or box shadow. Okay, that's what it's called. Unless that's what you're going for. Yeah, unless that's what you're going for. However, I would say that when it comes to really breaking the rules like that, I say go for it. I think that you should break rules. I think that's how we create amazing, incredible design trends and move into the next eras of design. I think that's a great way to do things. But make sure that while you're out there in the design world and you're breaking rules, taking names and breaking rules, make sure that you break those rules in a way that appears deliberate. If you break them, but you don't break them well enough, sometimes those rules that you've broken make it seem less like you are doing a design-oriented sort of thing and more like perhaps you don't know what you're doing. And I guess I feel like that came out a little bit harsh, but you see what I mean. If you're going to break the rule and you're going to have different lighting sources and different shadows and things coming from different places, make sure it looks stylized. Make sure it looks as if those decisions are deliberate instead of making it all over the place, if that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining that well. As you can see here, another thing that I'm doing in keeping with our idea to keep this lighting situation going here is I've made the bottom lip or the top lip dark and the light catching on the bottom lip here. Okay, so the bottom lip is a little bit lighter, so it keeps that, you know, that lighting situation going. I think I will actually end up transforming this and bumping it up just slightly. And I'm gonna continue just one side of this Cupid's bow down, like so. All right, now what do? We are going to make sure we have a space for our brows to continue down into. So I'm gonna kind of darken this right up in here, this little pocket where your eyes are going. I'm also going to keep track of our time. Oh, we have only been painting for about 15 minutes, so we're good. We're good. So I'm gonna kind of darken in our brow area here. I'm also gonna come in here and add some shadow on the outside underneath of the lower lids so that we have shadow underneath here. And when I've added shadow here, that kind of tells me automatically if this is where shadow is, then above it, because our light is coming from the top down, above it must be light. Must be. That's simply how it works. So if I can remember, sometimes it helps, and this is something I did at the beginning of my illustration adventure, and that was if I could just remember in a certain lighting situation where my shadows go, then I already know where my light goes. If I can remember in a lighting situation where my light goes, then I already know where my shadow goes. Does that make sense? So for you folks out there who are illustrators, who are struggling with lighting, for you folks out there who are graphic designers and maybe would like to dive into some projects that have more attention to lighting detail like this, but maybe don't know where to start, that is a good tip of how to keep things cohesive. Stupid question, are you drawing Kylo? I wasn't, but I might now. I know that this looks slightly masculine, maybe edging on androgynous, but it was intended to be female. But I think that all of my characters typically look very androgynous before I kind of refine them into the kind of person that I'd like to illustrate. We're gonna give this person some shapely brows. I'm a big fan of eyebrows. So I've put my shadow around the eyelids, because another thing that you want to keep in mind is all the light is coming from the top down, but your face is, you know, it's arced, it's not flat. A way to kind of imagine faces in a 3D shape is drawing a flat mask, or not a flat mask, but drawing a paper mask. So if this is a face, here, if this is a face, let me actually get my brush. If this is a face, okay, with eyes, nose, and mouth, okay, if that's a face, and you need to turn it, boom. It's another way that I try to keep my faces in perspective and things. So if that's a face, and I want to turn that, you know, keep in mind that the face is not, it might seem flat from this direction, but if you turn it, or look at it from another angle, it's not flat. So you are gonna have shadows coming like underneath, since the light is coming from the top down, but you also need to keep in mind that because this face is not flat, you are also going to have shadows around the edges, which is where most of the dark colors from under the eyelid, around the edges of the face, come into play, okay? And you'll also get shadows coming in from the cheekbones. You'll also get a little bit of that going on. A little bit of shadow magic over here on the cheekbones. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller and start to kind of hammer this out. And then I'm going to refine some of these features into the sort of character that I'm looking for. And I'm going to also take my eraser and I'm just gonna kind of subtract here from the edges as I see fit. What I want to do is I want to make this look just a little bit more feminine. Is I want to soften the kind of around that chin. And not every woman has a round chin. Some women have stronger jaws. But I think for this particular painting, this is the kind of feminine form that I'm going for, which is why I make those decisions. I'm also going to soften the nose. Here I've got like a very strong chiseled nose, which again, not all ladies have a soft nose, but this one does, this one will, so we'll do that. And I'm also, another way that you can also portray kind of a feminine vibe is making dramatic eyelashes. Although I have seen some fellas with some extraordinary eyelashes, not gonna lie. Some of y'all got it going on. The force is strong in the chat. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Okay, so we've got kind of a vibe going. All right, we've got kind of a look, and I am going to start kind of putting in hair. Now what I'm doing here as I paint our bangs is I'm putting a darker shadow where the bangs would curl in towards the forehead. I'm also going to put dark at the top, which kind of messes up our whole idea here of light from the top, shadow on the bottom. But remember that your domes are not flat. They're not. So we're gonna have light in this general area, but as it recedes back into the background, it's gonna get a little bit darker. Okay, so we are going to kind of tidy up our sketch here. I think I would have liked maybe to spend just a tiny bit more time on the piece, because I feel like I could do a little bit better. I feel like I could, add a little more spice to this, as one does. But I feel like how much time? We've only been painting for 30 minutes, and I've got a face in here, and that works for me. I might come in after the fact and make something a little bit more substantial, but for now, this'll do. And then we're going to talk about placing our quick little portrait here into a 3D space, and how techniques for placing things into atmosphere, into a scene, can also help you folks who are graphic designers and things. Some nifty techniques with lighting and the good old blur feature that make things look pretty nice. How many of you folks are graphic designers and use blur, using, blur features in your designs? How many of you folks do that? I'm curious. I'm also going to put like kind of a pretty dark shadow under the chin here. And I'm also going to erase actually just a little bit here, because I want to bring this hair over here. And grab some of this lighter color if I can. We're going to bring some of that hair over here and down this way. I'm just going to kind of change the direction of the way the hair falls real quick, because we've got our collar of our shirt here, and I want that collar to kind of come over. Boom. All right, we got a portrait. We got a portrait, y'all. We have painted, and I wasn't sure, so one of the reasons why I shy away from doing this particular style of illustration for these shows is that I have very limited time, and I always worry that like I'm not gonna be able to paint something in this style that's substantial enough during the duration of our stream. But I think I've done about as well as I could do in this time frame for the show. Give myself a pat on the back. Feeling good. Victorian era lashes. What does that mean? Victoria, I assumed they did not have higher eyelash technology in the in the Victorian era, please do explain yourself. What is Victorian era lashes? What is that? Explain yourself, sir, madam. Jurassic lashes. Okay, you guys are getting crazy. There's no way there's a such thing as Jurassic lashes. Absolutely not. I do not accept. I do not accept Jurassic lashes. Nope. No way, no how. Okay. Boom. We got it going on. What's going on? Also, I sing sometimes. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but if you are just tuning in to Graphic Glow Up and this is a show that you have never seen before, there are tunes. There are tunes on this show. We don't get through a single episode without me seeing somebody accidentally quote a song I've heard before in this chat and then serenading them with it. That never not happens on the show. I'm also surprised I haven't made a Star Wars joke yet. That's also something that happens. Hi, I'm VooDooVal, and I draw stuff, and I like Star Wars. That's all you need to know about me. That's all of me. Truly. Let's add some eyes so that she's not totally blank in the eye department. Also, little tip for those of you who are painters and illustrators. If you don't like painting eyes because they're a little bit difficult, I feel your pain. I know that vibe. I found out a little bit ago that you can suggest eyes without having to paint them. I don't really want to paint the pupils and all that stuff into these eyeballs, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a little dark spot in there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small brush with some white, and I'm just going to put a dot here and here. And all of a sudden she has eyes and she's looking at you. They're a little lopsided. Let me even that out a little bit. All of a sudden this woman has eyes. And I'm gonna even put a little side shine. All of a sudden she's looking at you. She's looking at me. She's looking at everybody. Where before she was a dead-eyed ghost. Now suddenly she sees. Okay. I'm gonna put a little spot of light around her nose and all that. I'm really just getting into like a lot of detail that I probably ought not to be getting into, just because I'm self-conscious about it. But there's a face. So now we're going to put this into a 3D space. How much time do we have left? I'm working fast. Okay, we still have half an hour though, so we're good. All right, so what I'm gonna do, because I sketched, and I sketch really light sometimes when I sketch. So if I were to make a new layer under here and turn it to red, you can see through that, which I don't want you to be able to see. So what I'm gonna do is hit L on my keyboard and take my lasso tool. And I'm just going to quickly, I'm gonna select all of our gal here. Okay. And I'm gonna do this messy. I'm not gonna be extra fancy about it because we simply do not have time. But I'm gonna select and what I'm gonna do is, since I drew this on a white background, and I know that white showing through, the sketch looks fine. It looks exactly like I want it. Now with the shape of her selected on this new layer, I'm just gonna paint bucket in white, and I'm gonna merge these together. So now if I make a new layer, it's a solid color back there. So this is all isolated. This is totally, she's by herself now. Okay, so let us place her in a scene. Atmosphere, I say. So I'm gonna paint bucket just some black back here. We're gonna put her in, so we're gonna set the mood. It's gonna be very moody, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my handy dandy noise brush trick, which you can use if you hit B on your keyboard and select one of these soft round brushes. Literally the soft round brushes that come with Photoshop. It doesn't have to be fancy, okay? Does not have to be a fancy brush, just one of these guys. And change the mode to dissolve. Ta-da! It is a noise brush. Very easy noise brush. I'm gonna put a tiny bit of light back here, just a little bit. Or what we could do is we could put a tiny bit of light. Actually, you know what? We're not gonna do the background yet. This is what we're gonna do. We're actually going to make a new layer. We're gonna set that as a clipping mask. Not like that. Clipping mask. Boom. And what I'm gonna do is I'm imagining her, so she's lit from the top down, for the most part. Now we have to light her from the front back, right? Because she's gonna be in a space. We're gonna try to make this look like you're going into a place. And this is going to start coming to play for those of you who are not painters and illustrators. This step is mostly for illustrators. But we are going to put some shadow around the edges so that it looks like, look at that. You see how just a little bit of darkness right there made it almost look like her shoulders zoom back into the scene? We're gonna do the same thing here, up top. Okay. We're gonna do the same thing, just kind of encroaching upon the edges. We're gonna really make a lot of these edges disappear into the scene. All right. I'm gonna do a little bit of that. And we might even do it underneath her bangs here. Just kind of pulling it from the edges. Okay. And then I may bring out a tiny bit of the light again. I just want to show it like kind of dipping back in there. And I think that I would probably also come in here with another brush just to kind of bring in some of that detail back, because we want to pull some of this hair forward and let some of it disappear back there, you know, so we can add a little bit more detail, but I won't hyper focus on it too much today. Just a few tiny hair strands, just to make sure that this all still looks like it's pulling out into the front. So there's shadow behind, there's stuff catching light in the front, and it looks cohesive. We'll put like some tiny little hairs kind of in the back here. It's another really great way to show that something has a little more substance. Adding little, you know, if you're painting a character, adding some little tiny hairs kind of floating around. It works. It works. Also, the shoulder is in shadow, so we will put some light catching hair over top of it, so it looks like she's pulling out. Okay. Karis guys, what is up? It is good to see you. Always a pleasure. Is it Retta or Rita? Welcome in. I saw you in the chat earlier. It's great to see you. Odari, hello. Odari, if you get a chance, watch Val's Female Venom stream. That was a good time. Grand Admiral Val is an Artilorian. This is the way. Thank you so much, Odari. Sith Lord Val, that's me. I also respond to Sith Lord Palpatine. That's also acceptable. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. We got about 20 minutes left. Okay, so keep in mind, this is very dramatic. We still have all my sketching, you know, lines here. We still have all that stuff going on. It's not as clean as I would like it to be, but I hope that everyone is following along, and you kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of light around the crown of the head here, and I think that looks good. Now, let's do some blurring, shall we? And add a little bit of something into the background. Now, for those of you who are graphic designers, painters, illustrators, this is a really great thing to keep in mind if you're somebody that uses like drop shadows, or you like to create graphic elements with blurred portions of the design. There's some really great tips and tricks that I have to share with you today about how to blur things. And I'm also going to share with you a brand new tip for blurring stuff that I swear to you, I did not know about this. I really did not. And I used it for the first time like a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of blew my mind. I don't know how this Photoshop feature escaped me, but it did. So check this out. I'm gonna group all of this. So I have my lady here all in one place. And on this layer in between her and my background, I am going to grab my soft round brush, change that to dissolve, and we're gonna do what I was originally wanting to do, add a little bit of background. So I'm gonna, with just some white, I'm just gonna add a little bit of something right there, maybe a tiny bit over here, just some strange stuff happening in the background. Kind of like this is like my version of like bokeh, you know, just something whatever in the back, so it's just not like a flat background. I'm gonna turn down the opacity on that just a little bit because I don't want it to be crazy. I just want it to look not like a flat background. And we are going to add some particles and specks of things. We're gonna blur some of them, but not all of them. And we're gonna try not to go overboard with it. But this is a kind of a great thing if you like to design with elements that are blurred. This is a fun thing to do. So you can use a grit brush if you want. I actually, you know what? I'm almost thinking we should make our own brush. What do you guys say? Hold on, I'm gonna group this together. We're gonna make our own brush real quick. Because why not? We cannot be stopped. No one can tell me I can't make my own grit brush. Okay, I'm gonna just make some flecks of something. Just some little pieces of design, okay? Just some design flecks, if you will, okay? Let's get some design flecks going on. Honestly, you can't do this job without your, ye old design flecks. What is it flecks of? No idea. Could be anything. Really, it could be, but you kind of need a brush like this. So there's some design flecks. I'm gonna hide this background. With my lasso tool, I'm gonna just circle this, okay? And with that selected, I can come up to, I don't know if you can see this well, I just realized, I'm gonna bump this down. Oops. I'm gonna bump this down for just a second because I realize my overlay is covering this and I might have to fix that. I'm gonna come up here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let me reselect that. I believe if we go to edit, define brush preset, it will define as a brush whatever is in that selection. And I'm gonna call this, you can't stop the grit. That's the brush name. You can't stop the grit. And then I'm gonna bump this up in my overlay once again. Okay. And now I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna unhide all this. Control D to deselect. And I am going to, with my new brush, everyone, I am going to make sure yeah, here we go. You can't stop the grit. I'm gonna drag that up. By the way, I am selecting my brush palette by just the click on my my stylus, which I believe is right click on your mouse. And then I'm gonna edit this real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and edit this. And we're gonna space that out. I'm gonna add some shape dynamics, get some size jitter going on. I think we need even more spacing. We're gonna change the angles of this. I feel like I want, yeah, we want that size jitter. Roundness, not so much. Scattering, do we want to scatter? No. Count, That's sort of gritty. That's a little bit gritty. That's kind of gritty. We can turn the count up. Count jitter. Ooh. What's that look like? That might be too much. That might be too much. I don't know. Let me turn that to white just so I can see. Okay. I would maybe want a little less going on. But I think we can use that. We may be able to use that. So what I'm gonna do is, first of all, I'm gonna put some stuff in the front here. How much time do we have? I want to make sure I'm not sucking up our time. We've got about 15 minutes. How do you decide to leave a painting alone? Sometimes I keep working on it, on something and overwork it, screwing it up in the process. Happens to me literally every day, Rob. I would say to you, that if you are constantly having trouble, I am going to change this brush just slightly. If you're constantly having trouble, like figuring out when to end a painting, I would say that you're not alone. And I would also tell you to try something that I am trying to actively try to do every day, and it's something that I heard James Bonanno say, and that is that finished is better than perfect. Right? Finished is better than perfect. Sometimes you have to settle for finished because you're going to be your own worst critic. You really are. You're going to be your own worst critic for everything that you do, most likely. I think a lot of us are. And you're going to need to accept sometimes that you just need to get something done and not worry so much about your own standards of perfection, if that makes sense. And that is much, much harder said, or easier said than done. It really is. But I noticed that since I started thinking that to myself in my head, I actually find that I run into situations where I overwork things a lot less often. And I was actually kind of shocked about that because I was like, well, he says this, but like, will I feel that way when I remember this thing? And actually I did. I really did. I was like, okay, I want this to be absolutely perfect, but how long is it really going to take me to decide that this is perfect? And does it need to be as perfect as I wish for it to become? And is that going to be physically taxing or emotionally taxing for me to continue to push this so far that I'm wasting time, precious energy doing it? Or is where it is right now good enough to be finished? And this is not the case with every single project, and this is not going to be the perfect solution for everybody's issues of this sort, but it works for me sometimes. It works for me a lot. Okay, I am almost done. Oops. I'm almost done with this. I'm going to do a slight shape dynamic. There we go. Let's do a spacing. Perfect. Look at that. There's grit. You can't stop the grit, y'all. Okay. New brush preset. Okay. We got it. Okay. So now I got grit. And what I kind of do sometimes is I put grit around and then I erase a bunch of grit out of it. And then I'm going to blur it. I'm going to blur it with some motion blur and other kinds of stuff, okay? So I've got some grit in there, and I'm going to erase some pieces of it just so that I really have like this very organic looking, gritty, strange texture to it. And this looks weird, but I'm going to tell you, it's going to add a lot of atmosphere to what we're doing right now. I'm also trying to keep track of time. We got about 10 minutes. I am moving faster than I think I am. And to your point of like, how do I not overwork something? How do I know when I should just let it go? I had to do that today because like it's kind of eating at me. Like I feel like I could put more effort into the illustration that I've done here even. Like I want to do more on it. I feel like it could be better, but it's like, it's good enough to serve my purpose right now. It's good enough for the lesson that I'm teaching in this moment. And so why beat myself up making it perfect when it doesn't have to be for something that it can be used for now? Okay, so there's some grit in the scene. So we're going to come up here. First of all, I want to show you, we're not going to use this blur feature, but I am going to show you a really cool kind of blur that's just super fun. In the blur gallery, there's something here called path blur. And I just want to show you how neat this is. So have you ever tried to use motion blur and you need to blur something in an arc and you just select portions of it and just start blurring it sort of, you know, in different segments? Now you can just do this. Look Look at it! It just blurred that in an arc. It just did it. How would it look if you put the dissolve onto the grit brush? I think you're a genius, sir. I think you're very, very smart. Yeah, boom. So there you go. We're not gonna use that for our blur. Cancel. We're not gonna use that for our blur, but it's really cool. So there you go. Let's put dissolve. Oh, maybe it was on dissolve already. Was it on dissolve already? Yeah, it is on dissolve. I can't really see it. No, it is. It is. It's just, it's too gritty already. But yeah, so we are gonna blur this. We're just gonna do a Gaussian blur. So we're gonna go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, Gaussian. And we're gonna crank that up, I think. I'm gonna crank this up so that you can barely see some of these pieces. Okay, so we got, you know, like this strange texture in the back. And then we're gonna come in and we're gonna do some more grit. We're gonna add it in little specks around, okay? Add some little specks. And I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna erase so it doesn't look like I stamped. Because I think this brush needs a little bit of work so it's not so stampy. How are we doing on time, by the way? We're doing okay. I think I need to stop in the next few minutes here, so I'm just gonna do this last blur thing. So I've got some grit here. We're gonna put some grit over top. So we've got grit in the background, okay? We're gonna put some grit over top. And I think that I would spend more time on this, making this look a little more cohesive. I really would. But I'm hoping that everybody catches my meaning of how to give something a little more atmosphere. So I have those blurred bits in the back, but then I have like these sharp little pieces in the front here that kind of bring it out, and I need some more love. But another thing you can do is there's a third level of something blurred that you can add, and that is if I make my brush really, really big and I add some gigantic pieces really close, really, really big on the canvas, and then I bring them like right to the edge like that. If I have big pieces and then I blur those, that's gonna make it look different. So we have tiny pieces blurred in the background. We have small pieces blurred in like the midground there where it's in focus. And now we're gonna take these giant pieces, and if we blur them, like really blur them a lot, it's gonna look like there's stuff right up to the camera lens, okay? It's gonna be like right up in your mug. And that looks like this. Let's do a Gaussian blur. I don't know if it's Gaussian or Gaussian, but when I think it in my head, I say Gaussian. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else thinks that. But yeah, we're gonna, boom. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. And you can, I hope you can tell that this, this kind of stuff, it needs a little more love. I think the illustration needs a little more refining. The blur pieces need a little more refining. But these are really great tips that you can use to improve your painting and your illustration. If you're doing graphic design and you want to create a scene, you can use varying levels of blur to create a window into a place, even for just your graphic design. If you are a compositor, if you composite photos in Photoshop, or you do video editing, or not video editing, excuse me. I think this is probably the only thing it doesn't work for is video editing. But if you're doing compositing or photo editing, keeping in mind all the things we talked about when it comes to lighting sources and keeping that in your mind will help you with illustration and painting, but also with choosing the right photos when you gather a bunch of photos to composite together. Choosing photos that have the same light source, or at least being aware that a photo doesn't have the same light source and then editing it accordingly, and so on and so forth. But I've had a lot of fun. And the last thing that we have to do, I realized that we actually didn't set up our goals this time. It's the first episode we didn't set up our goals, which I feel like we needed to do, but that's okay. I think we're fine. I am gonna go ahead and award myself some achievements. So this is our achievements section. At the end of all of our episodes, as I said earlier, for those of you who are just joining in, one of the things that I like to do is I really, really love to encourage all of you folks to recognize the hard work that you do. It's not easy out there. Being a graphic designer, or being an illustrator, or being a video editor, and a lot of us can be our own worst critics. A lot of us are very hard on ourselves, but I like for you guys to remember that no matter what you do, even if you sit down and you do not succeed in a kind of concept that you were trying to work out for yourselves during a project, any amount of time that you put into creating is progress. All of it is progress. Even when you do something wrong, you still know exactly what not to do next time to achieve a certain goal. And one of the things that I have for you, which you can download if you scroll into the description, you can download my achievements page and you can keep for yourself. You can share it with other people, but it is not a competition, so you don't have to share it if you don't want to. But this achievements page to tally a visual representation of your achievements. You can see that you are moving forward. Now I did a lot of illustration today, so I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a point for illustration. I think that we also, did a lot of discussion of graphic design today, so I'm gonna give myself a point in graphic design. We didn't really do a lot of video editing or animation, but I think that I'm also going to give myself a point for presentation, because even though my piece is unfinished, I still think it looks pretty good. So those are the points I'm awarding to myself. Don't forget to award yourself some points, and please take heed of the tip down here at the bottom on the achievements page. You deserve to earn points when you try things for the first time and or when you create something you're proud of. Get into the habit of appreciating the little things, moments in which you grow, not just complete. So if you made something and, along with me today, or you were working on something while you listened today, that's progress. If you tried something but maybe didn't make a perfectly formed, incredibly impressive portfolio piece, but you tried something you never tried before, or you made an attempt at something that you'd like to be better at in the future, that's progress. We're always moving forward. Never doubt that. Never get down on yourself about not being good enough, because you're always making waves. Even if you don't think so. I know it. So that is all the time I have for you today, folks. I do have to take off. It has been an absolute pleasure and a blast hanging out with you. It is never a dull moment in these shows. You folks always make me feel loved and welcome, and I hope that you have enjoyed what we discussed and talked about today. If you guys ever have any ideas for cool episodes of Graphic Club, please send me a message. I'd be happy to look at some ideas that you have. You can also post in the Discord. We get the link for the Discord in the chat. There is a game show channel in the Discord where people sometimes share things with me for any of the various game shows that I've done over the years here on Adobe Live. So the game show channel is open to you if you want to share any ideas, any thoughts with me about the show. And I will be back in a couple of weeks. This is my last stream for the week. I will be doing some CCX or Creative Cloud Express streams next week, and then I'll be back the week after with some more Graphic Club. So adios everyone, please tune in tomorrow because we have another jam-packed day on Adobe Live, and I'll see you around the bend. Adios everybody.